Coach Lauren back again with another Local Leaders segment. This time we're talking about a very important topic. Over the past week, we've been talking about leadership and striking out bullying in our virtual practices. And today's Local Leaders segment addresses a very important topic in both of those lessons, especially in today's world. And it's called antiracism. Before we jump into this segment, I ask that you please watch this Local Leaders with your family, your parents, your guardians, so that you can all discuss anti-racism together. For this Local Leaders segment, I interviewed Julia Mariano, San Bruno native and executive director of the Reform Revolution Project, an initiative that seeks to help people educate themselves and others on how to be actively anti-racist. Julia will define anti-racism for us in this segment. Julia currently works as an associate at Alza Strategies in Sacramento and recently graduated from Sacramento State University with a degree in political science. She has experience in education outreach through her time as a political science student mentor through Sacramento State's Peer Academic Resource Center. She also has experience in legislative work through her time as a legislative aide in the California State Assembly, and is well versed in issues of advocacy and social justice through her time in co-founding Students Advocating for Freedom and Equality at Cappuccino High School right here in San Bruno, which was a club that aimed to increase and bring awareness to voices on campus. Julia is incredibly passionate about the mission of Reform Revolution Project and serves as the initiative's team director. She is determined to contribute to the movement through the power of accessible social justice education. So without further ado, let's hop into this interview. So our first question for you is, how would you describe anti-racism for our players?
Yeah, so anti-racism is practicing not bullying or discriminating someone based on the color of their skin. So when I say practicing, like we go to practice to go do sports, practice how to play an instrument, practice how to read, practice how to write. Practicing anti-racism is something that's a lifelong journey. You can't just figure it out in 1 day, 2 days. So we're constantly practicing how to be kind to someone and to stop bullying someone, and also stand up for other people as well. So that's kind of what anti-racism is.
Awesome. And then along those lines, what can our players do to better understand anti-racism? What sorts of questions can they ask their parents or guardians?
Yeah, so I think anti-racism education really stems with the parent to the child. I think children, race is something that we grow up to learn. We're not born being racist. We learn how to be racist. And even if you are not racist, there is something called racial prejudice, which is having some prejudice towards a certain race. So I think it's mostly the job of the adult to ask their kids questions, or if they see something in front of their children that is something that's racist or prejudiced towards a race or a culture, be very open and be empathetic with your child and be very kind and comforting about it, because not every child has the privilege of just ignoring race. Some kids are born into it, and that's just something they have to learn every single day. I think if you're a child, I know when I was growing up, I had a lot of questions about race because I am biracial. I have a Caucasian mother and an Asian dad. And so just like Lauren. And so I know that it can be kind of confusing sometimes. And I always was asking questions like, why am I so darker, so much more darker? Why are my friends not like this? Why do I have curly hair and everyone has straight hair? And those questions are very odd for like a parent to kind of hear from a child, but that's just how your child feels. And if you are someone who is growing up and you are, in the same position, it's okay to like ask questions about it, and also ask your friends questions and have conversations about it, because everyone deals with it, at some point, I think. And everyone kind of, even if you are not a person of color, you have friends who are of color, and it's all about mutual respect. So some of the questions or some of the things that you can do as a child going and navigating through this is like identifying how you feel about it, making sure you write down how you feel about it. So when you do want to ask your question, you have it already ready for you. And then also let yourself feel the things that you want to feel about it. If it does upset you, it's okay. If it, doesn't upset you, it's okay. If you're confused, that's okay as well, because again, it's something that we learn over time. It's not something that we're born already knowing how to do.
Definitely. And I really liked what you said too about asking questions and as a mechanism to navigate the experience, because I think that also really appeals to what you're trying to do with Reform Revolution Project is, cultivate lifelong learners and people.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Who are self-aware and, continue to challenge themselves. So I hope that our players can go forth in doing that and wanting to learn more and challenge
Yes,
themselves. So
yes, that'd be
definitely.
great.
Yeah, and another question I have for you is, how can our players actively be anti-racist?
Yeah, so that takes a skill. That's something that you build up over time, like I said before. And what we do at Reform Revolution is teach an anti-racism curriculum with social justice curriculum. So learning about our history, even though sometimes it's not always easy learning about our history, learning the truth of our history. So the really biggest thing to be actively anti-racist is just educating yourself constantly. So read a lot of books, ask a lot of questions, like I said before. Another thing too, especially when you're going through like your preteen, teenage stages, like it can get very overwhelming and like those feelings get really emboldened because I think you start kind of like realizing and identifying those things with race during that time more so. And it's okay to just feel the way you're feeling. Like I think that I say that to a lot of my friends too, even in college and even post college. Like it's okay to feel uncomfortable. It's totally normal. But another thing that you can also do is like ask your teachers. Like, I want to learn more about the Civil War. I want to learn more about post-Civil War. I want to learn more about how I can be kinder to my friends that are people of color. So, how can I be kinder to myself? So, the one thing that you can always do to like be actively anti-racist too is just like take care of yourself. You can't really be kind and empathetic to others if you're not kind and empathetic to yourself.
That's very true. And I enjoyed what you said about asking about different forms of history that aren't always taught, because I feel like, especially when I was growing up and I was in elementary school and in middle school, I had no idea that there was this, completely different history from what I had learned in school, and one that often is kind of tough to talk about, but very necessary to talk about.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then this is a subject I think, I'm not sure if a lot of our players have heard this term before, but I'm excited for you to define it for us. So, what is an ally and how can our players be allies?
Yeah, so allyship is actually something that we unconsciously kind of do at a young age, I've realized. So allies are people that support another community, and it doesn't have to be race-based either. It can be about gender, sexuality, ethnicity, religion, and it's a group of people that support another community that they're not technically a part of. So when we talk about race, a lot of people of color, their allies are people who are not of color, and they support them anyway, and they help them through the difficulties that their life may bring that, people of color or non-people of color might never really experience. And it's understanding, engaging, and really supporting and uplifting those voices. So being just like a really good friend. And that's, if you've ever had a best friend before, you're an ally to that person to your personal life. So that's kind of what an ally is. And I think, you might unconsciously like already be an ally, you might unconsciously have your best friend's a person of color and they may be upset about certain things, but you being their friend is a type of allyship at a young age. And so just continuing on with that in your life, that's how you kind of keep going with all of that. And again, being kind to others and being empathetic as well.
Definitely. That's a really perfect explanation, because I feel like we were just talking about that today in practice, actually, how to be a good friend, who would want to be friends with, why it's important to be kind to everyone, and I think that is such a really beautiful thing as a kid, that you just kind of naturally make friends with everyone, and you learn to not be that way, but hopefully kids will stop being like that.
Yeah.
Pursue friendship, But,
Yeah.
and then one big question for you is, what resources do you recommend our players and families look into to learn more about anti-racism?
Yeah, so I think resources are really, it's a difficult thing for teenagers and kids with race because it is a touchy subject, and I think a lot of people get scared about talking about it, but the longer you put it off, the harder it's going to get to have those open conversations. And people start having conversations with their kids about race as early as like 3 years old, when they start kind of recollecting the difference between race and ethnicity and like how they fit in with all of that. So there's some books that we recommended from our project, and there's a book called a kid's book about racism by Jelani Memory, and then a kid's book about empathy by Darren K. Roberts. And those two kind of navigate, they talk about subjects about race and how to handle race and how to handle race with yourself and how to handle race with others at an age appropriate manner. So it's not, learning about all these really, really dark history things, but also, kind of empathizing and doing it in a way that's respectful. Other resources that I think too is, again, education is a really big thing. Like your school's a resource, your teacher's a resource, the library's a resource. If you ever want to learn more and go in depth more, there's always online tools, YouTube videos, and just like picking them out for what you think that is fit for your child and yourself as well. But also too, like parents are also like they also are learning and growing every day as well. So it can be a good learning tool for them too.
Definitely. And I really hope, that all of our players right now are watching this with their families and that their parents feel inspired to look into these different resources and address these topics as a family. I hope it's my hope that they go into that way. But, and another question I have for you is that the biggest mission of the Junior Giants program is to grow players who subscribe to the 4 bases of character development. So those are leadership, teamwork, integrity, and confidence.
Yeah.
So how is anti-racism related to these 4 bases, would you say?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I also really like that mission that you guys have about leadership, teamwork, integrity, and confidence. Like I played sports my whole life ever since I was a really young child. And I always, I never really like thought about my race as being an issue or anything like that. And then obviously as people get older, those things start kind of diverging a little bit. But the one thing that I've always felt from a person of color side of things is that it's always easier to live a life where you're more respectful and kinder and happier towards things versus being angry, and vice versa. And so if you go around things, anti-racism and being empathetic towards others and being kind towards others and understanding, you're going to be a lot better of a leader, and you're also going to be a lot better of a team member, because the way that you treat people is the way that people are going to view you and treat you back. In terms of integrity and confidence as well, like the happier you are and the more comfortable you are in your own skin, and like being around other people as well and sticking up for them based on like how they look and being an ally, you're building integrity in yourself, so you know that you are doing the right thing and you're confident in yourself when you do those things. It's all about trusting yourself, and anti-racism is also all about trusting yourself and trusting that you know enough to defend someone, and defend yourself too for some people as well. So I think that's the big thing, is just really being kind to others and respectful.
That's awesome. Yeah, and that really goes along. We were discussing today, the topic of our practice was striking out bullying, and how kids can stand up for other people when they see bullying, who to go to. And when you said right there, like, anti-racism is really just about practicing being kind, being inclusive, defending people. That really speaks to what we've been talking to the kids about. So I really appreciate that you brought that up. And then the final question I have for you is, if you could go back in time and speak to your child's self about the importance of anti-racism, what would you say?
I would say, if I can go back in time to speak to my former self about racism, I would say no matter what you look like or what color you are, what race you are important. It makes you think about things differently, and that it's okay to feel uncomfortable and understand, like, why do I look different than other people, and why don't I look like my mom, or why don't I look like my dad. And it's okay to get angry about it every once in a while, but as long as you go about things with being kind to others and knowing where things go wrong for other people and recognizing it, it's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to feel a little bit scared or a little bit nervous about it, but it makes you a better person when you feel uncomfortable, because it makes you grow more. So it's a better life when you live a life of acceptance versus not accepting at all.
Exactly. And constantly wanting to grow. That was a really great message to end on, that our players should always be looking to grow and to challenge themselves and to learn, and that they're always on a journey of self-acceptance. I feel like even at my age, which is like not super old, but older than our players, I still constantly struggle with that, being able to accept myself. So, well, Julia, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today about anti-racism for our players. And I am so excited to post this on our digital dugout and all of our social media. So thank you. Well, Junior Giants, thank you so much for tuning in to today's Local Leaders segment on anti-racism. It's a really important topic that I hope you and your families continue to discuss and learn how to practice together. My favorite part of today's interview was when Julia wove together how anti-racism interacts with our Junior Giants 4 bases of character development, which are leadership, teamwork, integrity, and confidence. So I hope that you and your families will take advantage of the resources that she listed, such as the children's book called A Kid's Book About Racism by Jelani Memory, as well as a kid's book about empathy by Darren K. Roberts. If you or your families would like clarification or definition for lots of the terms used in this segment, you can go ahead and swipe if you're on Instagram to find our vocabulary sheet. The vocabulary sheet will also be attached to our digital dugout post, linked in our YouTube description, and also featured on our Facebook post. I also encourage everyone to check out the Reform Revolution website, which is linked down in the YouTube description below. I also really encourage that you follow them on their Instagram, which is at Reform Revolution Project, and like them on Facebook for lots of incredible educational content for you to learn more about actively practicing anti-racism. So thank you so much, Junior Giants, and we'll see you next time.